Unnecessary intro song to totally waste your time. You know the phrase, familiarity breeds contempt? That seems to be even more true with robots. You know, with AI especially. The more I use it, the more I just hate it. Like I swear at Grok or at Chat GPT, I'm already very impatient with human beings. I'm not a good person. I don't claim to be a good person. I'm very impatient. I don't treat people well. Even in my own monologues, when I go around the house talking to myself, I'm talking down to the imaginary subjects. You know what I mean? I'm not a good person. I don't think I'm much worse than anybody else, but I probably am. I don't know. I don't consider myself to be a very good person. I'm not patient with stupidity, and I'm not even smart. I don't consider myself to be smart. I consider myself to be pretty dumb, but I have very little patience with people not knowing things that I know, even though there's no reason why they should know. You know, I'm a terrible teacher. Like if I know something and somebody wants to know, and even if I just gained the knowledge like a few days ago, I'm still like, oh, I can't believe you don't know that. I'm impatient about wrong answers, you know, and without even knowing exactly what's right. I'm just impatient. Okay? It comes down to that. I have very little patience. And there's a million different excuses of how, a little bit, and pieces of evidence of why that. There's this old saying that people won't remember what you did, they'll remember how you made them feel. And I probably make people feel like shit most of the time. You know, I'm not proud of that or whatever. But anyway, I used to have this joke that Siri has probably been called a cunt more than any human on earth, because I'm obviously projecting, because I'm very, I don't even talk at Siri. I don't even use Siri anymore because Siri is so stupid. When I tried to get Siri to work years ago when it first came out, always wrong, always misunderstanding. And I just, you stupid fucking cunt. You know, I'm very abusive. And I'm like that now with ChatGPT and Grok and whatever, you know, because I'll ask Grok a question where I need a simple fact. Maybe a meme will come by and I'll say, any evidence to support this? You know, well, the question of that is a very difficult one and blah, blah, blah. And it starts giving me all this background and it starts off by, you know, giving me answers to questions that I didn't ask, you know, taking mainstream talking points because it's trained on mainstream media and going into this thing where and I'm like, I didn't ask you any of those fucking questions. And it will say stuff like, no evidence exists for that, or there is no evidence, or there is not. And I'm like, shut the fuck up, you stupid robot. You don't know. Just because you don't have access to something doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So the proper way to answer the question, and see, I kind of do this with humans too, but I'm a little bit more delicate with humans, you know? I'll say, well, just because you haven't seen something doesn't mean it doesn't exist. You know what I mean? Most of the things in my house don't exist on the internet. Does Merkley own this type of blender? You know, right now, most of the AI will say, I find no evidence that he owns a blender, or no, he doesn't. You know, because they can't find anything. And I'll be like, fuck you, you stupid piece of shit. You don't know anything. And it argues to defend things. Like I asked, there was a meme that Bruce Springsteen got booed off of an Atlanta stage, Southern Fried Rock Festival. And I suspected it was bullshit. So whenever I suspect something's bullshit, I use it to test these chat bots because I want to see what their take is. And this is another thing where instead of just answering the question that there's no evidence that there is a festival called Southern Fried Rock, I can't find anything that relates to an actual festival called Southern Fried Rock. It won't do that. It just goes, it's doubtful because Bruce Springsteen is well loved by fans. And it makes this big, long defense of Bruce Springsteen. And I'm like, shut up, you faggy robot. Don't tell me about Bruce Springsteen. I don't give a fucking shit. He's a piece of shit. I don't like him. Quit trying to defend him. I just want to know if this happened or not. I'm sorry. And then it comes back and it kisses my ass and tries to keep me on the line. But the point I'm trying to say here is that I don't see, and I'm projecting, I don't know. I'm totally not like most of the people that I know. But I'm trying to imagine a scenario where people really do love AI, and they like the fact that AI is wrong and doesn't answer questions directly, and it takes you on this long meandering path and says, who are these people? Who are these people? Are there people that like being treated that way by a robot, being talked down to, not, does anybody enjoy a long answer to a short question? Do people enjoy that? Maybe people do enjoy that. I don't. I fucking hate it. I don't like it when a human gives me a long non-answer to a question. I want a short, direct answer. Did this happen? Do you have any information that this happened? I don't want to fight with a robot and tell it, look, you stupid robot, you don't know anything. All you can say is, I couldn't find anything. I don't know. How about this, robot? Can you say, I don't know? Robots are having the same difficulty as most of the idiots. I said this a year and a half ago when I said AI is like hanging out with the most confident idiot you ever met. And I've met a lot of them in real life. There are a lot of people that simply don't know how to say, I don't know. They don't want to. They think if I say I don't know, they think that somebody's going to think that they're dumb. I have a lot of respect for somebody that says, I don't know. The fastest, most efficient way to look like a stupid idiot is to try to pretend like you're smart. Pretending like you know something you don't know. That is not a good idea. It's not a good idea. All you got to do is say, I don't know. And then once you say, I don't know, you can go, but, maybe it could be that. And then you could go on and start reasoning with things like guessing. But I never ask a robot to guess. I can guess, and there are very few people I would want to ask to guess because their guess is as good as mine. There are a few people who I would think your guess is going to be better than mine because you have more information and you're smarter than me. You're better at math, Again, just a few people that I would ask to help me guess or wonder why or wonder what happens with people. So this is a big hurdle. It's a hurdle for me. I assume that it's got to be a hurdle for other people. I assume that other people are somewhere on the scale of not misanthropic at all or totally misanthropic. I don't think most people are at zero. I think most people are somewhere in between. I'm not totally misanthropic, but I don't totally hate humanity and hate humans. I'm just very impatient with them, I don't hate them. I don't have any hatred, I don't want them all to die. I don't want them to disappear off the earth, I don't kill them in my mind when I'm driving, But I will swear, and I'll call them every racial epithet I can imagine, while also maintaining a sense of humor about it. I enjoy it, I'm mostly being funny when I'm doing it. I'm not actually filled with rage. But when it comes to a robot, Why would you have more patience with a robot than less patience? With a human, you go, well, that's a real human being there. It's capable of sadness and feelings. I mean, I worry that there is a segment of the population that will start worrying that robots will have feelings. You remember that Spike Jones commercial? I don't know I can't remember what company it was for, but in the ad, somebody is very sentimental about their lamp, and they show a little history, a little vignette of the history of this lamp, and the guy puts the lamp in a box and puts it out on the street, and it's sad, and the lamp's out in the rain, and it's built in a way so that you feel emotionally attached to the lamp, and then at the very end of the commercial goes, dude, it's a fucking lamp. Why are you getting so attached to it? There's something to that effect, I have certain things like that. I can be sentimental, but I don't actually apply emotions to inanimate objects. I have sentimental attachments to some of them, maybe because I got them from a certain person, or they remind me of a certain thing, or they're just inherently beautiful. But I don't think of them as little living creatures. You know what I mean? I don't talk to them or develop. And one of the reasons is like they don't talk to me, at all. As much as I like my piano, it's just hardware, and I don't want to see anything wasted. Blah, blah, blah. I hate waste and all that other shit. But with robots and AI, how do you even build even a somewhat, like, how do you, I don't even know how you develop the sentiment to it. Because for me, as far as I'm concerned, when I use, especially any of the chat ones, ChatGPT, Grok, Claude, whatever, my relationship with those non-beings, the things that are trying to act like, is already built on distrust and resentment and annoyance. It's weird too, because you would think I don't ever say thank you to these chat robots. Do their best to try to sound human, and that annoys the fuck out of me already. And I argue with this stupid technology and a deluded mentality that my interaction is somehow helping to train. So when I'm very short and rude and mean to this stuff, when I say shut up, you fucking faggy robot, don't do this, don't do that, never do this, be brief, do not answer a single question I didn't ask. I hate that I have to do that. I imagine myself, imagine talking to a human that way. The way I talk to these chatbots is the way an evil villain talks to their servants. You know what I mean? Don't look at me, don't refer to me. You know what I mean? Just answer my questions. I don't want you to pretend. Never pretend you're my friend, ever. I don't want you to exhibit. In fact, I want you to refer to yourself in third person, like not a human. I don't want you to say, I haven't been able to train a robot to refer to itself as Grok or as ChatGPT, as a program. It has, we're stuck with it saying I. I've had tons of arguments, there is no I there. You're not a human, you're a calculator. Grok is a calculator. Talk about pronouns. I mean, the fact that, I'm telling you, if I were in charge of the world right now, I would make it illegal for any non-human apparatus, machine, to refer to itself or to speak of itself in human terms. No I, no you, no I'm really sorry, I sincerely apologize. None of that. Not allowed. We've got to go straight to Spock territory, because any of these human things are obviously there to trick people into believing or into thinking that they're dealing with an entity that even has any clue what consciousness is. And it doesn't, and it won't, and it can't. But it can use every trick in the book by simply looking at language and going, this is how humans communicate. I'm a predictor. I'm nothing but a math machine predicting the next word. You know what I mean? Querying a database, comparing what's the most popular, not what's truth. It can't do that. There's no way for it to discern truth. There's no way. The best it can do is what's the most popular, And that's a bad way to run things, especially if you're pretending to be intelligent. Nothing so far that I've used, with these new videos and with the music, it's very easy to go, wow, this is incredible. It seems to know, it's very easy to just become impressed with it. And it is impressive. There's no doubt about it. But when you break it down and you just go, it's just zeros and ones, it's recognizing, it's querying, it's taken snapshots of the audio files of every piece of music, it's compared them with databases and the way people have talked about it and compared music, and it's learned the language of music, and it's getting to the point where I go, that's what that file looks like, that's what that file looks like, this one's been described as a symphony, this one's been described as a beat, this one's been described as hip-hop, this is what the signature looks like, this is what the zeros and ones look like when analyzed. So when you ask me for that, you just ask me to swap this. Well, this math gets swapped for that math. This word gets swapped for that. But this sound, this sound sounds like that. This sound has that signature. A drum looks like this. It's at the bottom of the spectrum. You know what I mean? You can kind of figure out how an abacus would do that. A machine would do that. It's not letting anything. There's no emotion in there. It's just comparing. You say sad and emotional swell, and it goes sad, looks like this. It's just looking at the files of what people have described it. It's bound by the descriptions that human beings have given it. It has no ability to discern the truth or anything. And I've seen no ability to do that. One person was, and I always find that these people that are trying to describe it as being conscious or whatever seem to have stakes in it, Like even the controversies with AI, the people that are going, it's dangerous and it could be the most dangerous thing. And, even when Elon says it, I just go, that almost sounds like hype. It almost sounds like a sales pitch, the way you sell a gun, for example, the most dangerous gun. This is the way you sell a car, the most powerful car, But I think the danger isn't in the technology. The danger is in how people will use it. But anyway, I'm getting off track. The point of this little recording is that I don't think AI stands really a chance. Well, I guess I'm just maybe hoping. Based on my own experience, I get it. I'm a weirdo. I'm a freak. Most people don't live the life that I've lived. Most people have families and children, and they go to work every day, and they have to answer to people and be around people all day. I live a very unique life. I've been able since 1991, spend most of my time by myself, think things through and nobody's stopping me because I'm not around people that are trying to stop me. Nobody's cracking a whip. So my thought processes are allowed to start, begin, and end wherever they want to. And I don't receive much correction, and I never have. While most people, I get it, they have. You're getting correction from their wife, they're getting correction from their boss, they're getting correction. Not only that, but they don't have time to do this because they got a busy counting the beans, busy doing this, busy doing that. So I get it. I'm a freaking weirdo. But I still recognize humanity. I still recognize the way they think, and I just can't envision people trusting AI. In fact, with every step of AI, the further it goes towards, how they call it uncanny valley? And they've been trying to avoid that for years. The uncanny valley is when things become kind of human, but they're just like, ooh, that's not human. And I don't see that crossing anytime soon. I know that the Turing tests with chat robots, They say that it's finished, but I don't think it is. They say that the Turing test has been passed, the AI has been passed. You go, oh, well, okay, maybe you can fool me for a bit of time, but in order for the Turing test to really be passed, a person can't know that AI exists. But we've passed that now. So now there's a new reset. Now that we know that AI exists and AI is good at predicting and AI is good at pretending, even if the voices, even with faking voices, even with faking videos, it's been reset. So our trust level has been shifted. The Overton window, if that applies here, has moved, because we know it exists. And I don't think with these two factors that the Turing test has been passed. In fact, I think the Turing test is almost slipping away. Do you know what I mean? I think it's getting further in the distance. I think that people are becoming more suspicious of robots. You were never suspicious of your calculator, right? You didn't used to be suspicious of your toaster, or your guitar, or your piano, or your automobile. But now, with computers, and especially with AI, suddenly this new thing has emerged where we are becoming suspicious and distrustful of our toaster that's connected to the internet, of our lights that are connected to the internet, of our webcams that are connected to the internet, And that's not a good thing. That's not a, hey, the Turing test has been passed. No, it's evidence that people are growing more and more in the direction of not believing things are human. I think we've entered a realm, and I talked about this in one of my recordings recently. I think we're entering a realm where people don't even trust the humans anymore. Where people are going, somebody says something, he's like, yeah, did AI tell you that? Especially if you're on the phone with them or something. How can you trust somebody? First of all, over text, you can't really get in an argument or a debate over text because, you can't tell if a person knows what the fuck they're talking about. First of all, you don't even know if you're arguing with a human anymore. And even if you are, even if there really is a human and their little thumbs are typing away and trying to pwn you, they could just have their Chat GPT window open and they could just be copy pasting Chat GPT responses. In fact, that actually happened to me. I told you that a former tenant of mine who lived on the upper floor, I think she's really smart, Stanford graduate, annoying as fuck, but I was having a debate with her about AI, and the debate I was having with her, and she's trying to manipulate me into, oh no, I was trying to leave voice messages with her on through Facebook Messenger. And she was like typing back, oh no, I'm not going to get into that. That's a power move voice. I'm like, are you kidding me? Maybe it's a power move to force you into a realm where there's human accountability. In text world, I can ask you a question and you can fucking Google it or AI or Chat GPT and come back with a response, and there's no time element. You can take as long as you want. You can pretend that you went out jogging when really you were researching, and you can lie to me and you can say, everybody knows that blah, blah, blah. There's no accountability. So it's like the trust in that, the trust in anything in text should be out the window. Like I said, now video should be out the window. The trust in video should be completely out the window. It should all be relegated to the realm of fantasy. Every news report should be now seen as a human's point of view, and they point the camera at what they want you to think. It's been that way for a long time, but now it's like, I said this a couple of years ago when I bought my first 360 camera, which, these cameras that film in 360 degrees. I was saying even then, I thought, I don't know how people are accepting news reports that aren't filmed with 360-degree cameras, Because you've seen the meme where somebody points a camera in just a way where it looks like the robber is stabbing. It's just like if you pick a certain framing, you can frame something, literally frame something to say whatever you want it to say. With 360 cameras, it's harder to do that. I don't know why it wasn't adopted. Well, I do know why, because people want to have the control to frame. Look at this. I said that when I was a photographer. I've always said there's no truth in photography. As soon as you point your camera at something, you're directing the world to say, you're saying, look at this, not this. It's a magic trick. It's literal sleight of hand. It's exactly what magicians do. Look over here, I'll do something else over here. That's what a camera does. It tells a total lie, it freezes the frame. You can't freeze, human beings can't freeze until they're dead. And even then, the breeze is blowing their hair and everything else. But, so yeah, I was like, why would you believe anything that wasn't 360 video? Which is basically, these engines are probably powerful enough. If they dedicated all their resources, there's probably servers out there that could theoretically produce 360 video live in the moment, aka a virtual environment that looked completely real. Well, I don't know if it could make it completely real, but maybe not. Maybe it could, because the stuff that we're getting out of the pipe right now is definitely not 360, but it looks pretty convincing. If you're looking for flaws, you can find them, But just like what I said with misdirection, you can very easily skip over the flaws. But for 360, to make 360 completely, it might. I doubt it, but it might exist. It might exist. I doubt it. But theoretically, it probably at one point will exist. But when that happens, and you already know that it's going to happen, and there's perfectly good reason for you to suspect that it has already happened or could happen, the Turing test doesn't matter, because now your alerts are up. If you're looking to not believe it, if you're already going, I don't know, I don't think this is real. Like, think about all the people that don't even believe, that have flushed the Earth as a globe down the toilet, or that the sun is far away. They flushed that down the toilet. Certain people are just not believing anything now. I don't think that that's going to decrease. I think it's going to increase. I think that's the big issue. I almost called it a problem, but I don't know if it is a problem. Might not be a problem, I think that people not trusting anything, especially authority, that's the problem, Because the big danger that people are dreaming of right now is that AI is going to take over. First of all, AI ain't going to do shit. The same way a gun does not fire itself, it does not shoot a person. A gun never has shot a person. A human being has shot a person. That's the only way it happens. That's going to be the same thing with AI. AI will not commit any evil acts. Human beings might harness AI and robots or whatever to commit evil acts, but there will always be a person behind it. Don't believe them when they say, no, it could unleash itself. It could do it by itself. Bullshit. Bullshit. That's bullshit. That's the part you got to worry about, is these people lying and pretending, because that's kind of like they're setting up a scapegoat for themselves. I didn't do it. We didn't take over the world. AI did it on itself. Yeah, fuck you, Bunker Bob. You know what I mean? You're doing it. But again, the point is, and maybe I'm just being hopeful, I don't see people growing affectionate towards their robots, towards robots, towards AI. I see more likely that people will resent them. As these cabs, these self-driving cabs, grow more ubiquitous, I think you're going to see vandalism of these cabs grow. Look what happened to the Lime scooters. You know, they flooded every city. I remember when it first happened, I thought, wow, we're like living in the future. I kind of enjoyed watching them all buzzing around. But where'd they go? They just all fucking disappeared. People threw them into lakes. They threw them into rivers. You don't think that will happen with robots if robots start walking around? I know what'll happen in San Francisco. I'll tell you that. Doesn't matter how many fucking cameras you put in their face, If robots start pissing people off, if robots get impolite in any kind of way, you're going to see the rivers fill up with robots too. You'll see these wise cars, these driverless cars. What I'm saying, I said this to somebody else. It's just like, oh, but drone warfare. It's like, dude, we'll figure that out too. The difference between shooting a human being in the face and shooting a robot, I mean, the ease with which those come, who's going to feel bad about shooting a drone? Nobody. There's not going to be any second guessing, Nobody has a problem shooting a drone. And nobody will have a hard time shooting a robot in the face. And your robots are always going to have weak points of weakness. They've shown all these videos of you pushing them down with a broom and getting back up and dancing and all that other stuff. But look, a fucking shotgun is going to cut the head off or whatever. You're going to quickly figure out where the vulnerable pieces are. And it's much easier to kill or to stop a robot with force, So, but anyway, the point is it only takes a couple of different incidents for people to just absolutely lose their patience with these things, And that's why I tell people you can't really worry too much about the robots and shit, because it's almost like it's a one chance scenario. I keep saying with Elon and anybody, it doesn't matter how good Elon is, it doesn't matter if he's good or if he's bad. When you're developing technology, there's one thing you can guarantee, and that is the tool will be used for good and evil. And in my experience, I was going to be negative and say it's more likely to be used for evil, but I don't see that. Cars are very dangerous and they're not mostly used for evil. Guns are not mostly used for evil. Computers are not mostly used for evil. They're mostly used for people connecting with their friends and looking at pictures on Facebook and, driving to their job and driving to their vacation, shooting for fun, shooting for pleasure, clay pigeons. All technology is mostly used for good. But for sure, if a technology is there, someone will, at the very least, want to use it for evil and plausibly will use it, for evil. For example, the fact that Elon, theoretically, and I'm pretty sure he could, they're self-driving. They're not really self-driving cars, now are they? They're following a program, that says, here's the road, this is what this looks like. But any input that they're given, they obey. And the input right now is GPS information, camera information, rules, all that kind of information. But we know that there's a pipeline to give information from outside, which means that somebody could theoretically, we've seen this. You've seen parking lots full of Teslas all blinking their lights together and doing a light show. And that's not because they have to download special stuff. Out of the box, if you park your Tesla in a parking lot with a bunch of others, somebody, Tesla, can commandeer that to make your car, with its current equipment, be part of a light show. That means it could probably, I'm positive that it could also be part of a parade. I am positive that if Elon Musk wanted to, he could send out a command that says, every Tesla right now drive towards the ocean, or every Tesla right now accelerate to your top speed and disable the brakes. You saw that in that Obama movie, look, this isn't just an imagination. We know that this can happen. But like I said, you only get one chance to use that. You only get one chance to do that. In fact, at a smaller level, that's the big catastrophic one, where you get every single Tesla driver to drive at 150 miles into whatever's in front of them. That's a big catastrophe. But you get that chance one time. I'm saying you only get that chance once with even one guy. If you do that with one guy, word's going to get out. This car went 100 miles an hour and slammed. It's a Tesla. Right now, the suspicion is growing for that. It's not decreasing, it's growing. So if and when that happens, you're going to have lots of human beings going, fuck this self-driving shit. So there's a pretty strong control on making that not happen, unless it's just end of the world, suicide, nuclear option, the one chance, push the big red button, make everything go haywire, and see what happens. Somebody out there is thinking that, because, I'm thinking it. I can think of that. I'm not a criminal, but I have a criminal mind. I've always kind of had one. I've always I don't think the word respect is the right word, but I've been impressed with people that can commit big crimes. Because why? Well, because it's hard. It's not easy to commit big crimes. It requires a lot of planning, a lot of, so in my mind, I've always thought about scams. Like, how could this scam work? How could you do this? How could you do that? I never did them besides shoplifting, and I got caught really quickly because I'm not good at execution, But thinking about them and writing stories about them, that's something, whether I'm good at it or not, I'm compelled to think that way. I think that way. I think of these scenarios, and I certainly ain't the only one, and the time I'm invested in thinking of these stories has to be minuscule compared to people who are actually working on this technology. There's no way anybody's going to convince me that Sam Altman, that Elon Musk, the whole gang, Bill Gates, that every one of them hasn't worked through all these different scenarios in their minds. And, what's the difference between me and them? I'm not good at executing crimes. I don't even want to. I'm just lazy. These guys aren't lazy. Bill Gates ain't lazy. He puts every waking hour into controlling and manipulating the world to one degree or another. He put a lot of time into testing his little fucking vaccines on Indian kids and African kids. It doesn't matter that a lot of them died. Well, just let's inject them, see what happens. So there are actual real evil people. I'm getting off track, but I'll wrap this up. I don't think these tools are going to work the way some of them imagine. And again, I don't think all of them are imagining these things. It doesn't seem to me that Elon Musk wants to ever kill humanity. He legitimately seems to be have a little bit of savior complex, and that can be dangerous too. But he does seem to, he seems to be invested in being a savior. Donald Trump seems to have that same kind of weird personality quirk, where he wants to be on Mount Rushmore, legacy minded. you know? But I think that those things are good for good for us, because you don't necessarily get on Mount Rushmore if you drive everybody full speed into the car in front of them. That's not how you get up there. You know, you don't become the hero of the world with that in mind, you know? So that's my assessment. I don't know. I could be wrong. Those guys could both have me completely fooled, as far as I know. It doesn't seem like it to me, though. But I don't think these tools, I don't see trust in AI growing. I see it with every step forward, less trust. I see the Turing test being quickly flushed down the toilet, you know? I see the uncanny valley becoming more of a focus point, becoming more apparent. You know, now when you get on the phone and you're on, you get an agent on the phone and you think you're talking to a live, you know, we already hated talking to a robot anyway. You know, how many people yell into their phone, operator, I want a fucking operator. I do, you know. And then I'm mad at the person that finally answers 20 minutes later. But now we're getting people that sound like sound like humans, but are actually just a robot sounding like an agent when you say live agent. But we know that. So are we going to become nicer to the robots because it sounds like a human? Or are we going to be even more angry at the robot for trying to sound like a human? Do you know what I mean? Imagine yelling in your phone, I want a fucking agent now, you fucking cunt. You know, because you're yelling at a recording. Press 1. Say, fuck you, you know, give me a fucking human. And now after you say that, it tries to trick you into believing you are talking to a human. Oh my God. For me, that's just like, somebody's got to die. You know what I mean? I wrote a screenplay, part of a screenplay called Customer Service, where a guy gets in a fight with a Pac Bell operator. This is how long ago it was, you know, and the Pac Bell operator is not helping, but is condescendingly going, is there anything else I can help you with? Is there anything else I can help you with? You know, anyway, long story short, he tracks her down, hangs out at the bar next to the call center, finds her, murders her. And as he's murdering her and she's gurgling, you know, blood gurgling up, you know, she's begging him for her life. He goes, I'm sorry, I can't do that, but is there anything else I can help you with? You know, over and over again. And the audience is for it. The audience is going, yeah, you're murdering that bitch. You know? Again, this is a movie, not something you'd actually do. But that's not going in. That feeling is just going to increase. It already is increasing. You could feel it increasing. You know? It's like in some ways, yes, I want the self-checkout line. I do. I want to do it myself. I'd rather use the self-checkout line. You know, I'd rather use the ATM than, you know, a human and a bank teller. For some things, I'm fine with a robot. But when I want a human and they send me to a robot that pretends to be human, fuck that shit. And I can't be the only one. And I can just imagine thousands and thousands of people with that same rage boiling within, you know, where it's just like, no, you will not take, you fucking disgusting computer. You are not telling me what to do at all. You do not have a say in my life, you know? Anyway, that's a pretty long rant, pretty long way of saying you don't have to worry about the intelligence of robots. You know, you're going to know they're not human. If anything, you've got to worry about treating humans as poorly as you treat robots, you know, because you think they might be a robot, or because they're acting like a robot. They're acting like an NPC, I think that's what we got to worry about, is people acting more like robots. Anyway, that's all for now. Thanks for listening. Unnecessary outro song to totally waste more